What is going on in your lives? I know, Josiah, you got kids in sports, right? Going every which way.
Every sport, almost. It seems like. No, my oldest is playing football, tackle football, and then another son is playing soccer and baseball and bowling. We got someone in a bowling league.
Wow.
How about that?
How's that going?
There was only one game so far, but
Is he curve or straight?
I don't know. I don't know. I have no idea.
He hasn't developed his style
Yeah,
yet.
No curve yet.
Yeah, it's still grown into the
he'll
whole
get
thing.
there.
But yeah, man, we're everywhere right now for sure.
Is this new for you guys, or how has the sports thing been in your lives to this point?
No, I mean, I know that there's a lot of or there at least can be some controversy around tackle football, just with all the, CTE and concussion protocols and all of that. And so we kind of scaled. So my oldest, he played 2 seasons of flag football just to kind of learn the game. Does he like it? How interested in it is he? And then he was hanging out with a group of his buddies over the summer, and they're like, "You should play." And we said, "Yeah." Practices every night of the week.
Wow.
For 2.5 hours. You're up there late, and then gets home. So I was worried that he's going to be like, "Oh no, I have no time to, relax after school or play video games." And there is a little bit of that, but he loves it.
Does he?
That's awesome.
I've been so surprised.
What do you think he likes the best about it? That whole experience. And I know we've zeroed in on football now, but
yeah, I think for my oldest anyway, I think he likes the fact that there's a social element to it. It's his buddies, male kind of togetherness and, overcoming stuff that he really enjoys. But I think he loves the discipline.
Wow.
Which is I think he likes the routine. And of course he likes the sport. He likes football, so he's learning more about it. But
Are you guys worried at all about the CTE thing or broken limbs or anything like that?
as far as the concussion stuff, I mean, I think they've done a pretty good job. They wear those Guardian caps.
Do they?
Yeah,
That's great.
I know Guardian caps get a lot of heat for the NFL. It's why are they wearing these things? There's this padded case that goes on your helmet.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so in the NFL, they started
So
allowing
it's like a helmet?
Yeah,
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
but they started allowing they started allowing, that's one way to put it.
mm-hmm.
They started allowing players in the NFL to wear them during games. So that's a whole big thing right now. But yeah, so as far as our concern about it, yeah, I mean, I think there is, but they seem pretty cautious, teams.
Yeah,
and
things
stuff.
have changed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough because I've young boys too, a little younger, and my older one's just not interested, and that's fine. But I played, through high school, middle school, through high school, and just 1 year low level college, and so I am still very biased towards it. I mean, my older one, do you want to play? And my younger one is maybe a little more physical,
Scrappy.
Yeah, he wants to play, and so there's this part of me that's why football? There's all these sports. You can learn the values of team sport so many other ways. Why even, if I'm being honest, am I putting a little bit of a bug in his ear towards football? Mm-hmm. It's hard to quantify, for me. And I think some of it's psychological, all those things. But I do think that there's something to a young boy getting hit, not punched in the face, but just getting, you got a helmet on, you got pads on, somebody runs into you. How do you respond? I think that there's value, and there's other ways you can get it, all those things. It's not the be all end all. I just want to make all that stuff clear. But for me, it's a very direct way of I don't know, I'm his dad. I'm not going to throw him out there if he doesn't want to, but I like him out there getting hit in the face a little bit, hitting somebody else, responding to adversity. I think that there's a certain degree of mental toughness and perseverance that you can get in other sports, but that I personally do like in football. I think, and I know there's different directions. I kept trying to find an age where kids could play, because that's the thing, is the age. And I could not find the American Academy of Neurology, AMA, American Medical Society for Sports. There's a couple others. They don't have a firm date, so they do allow it up to parents. I don't know if Dante or anybody found anything else, but there's not a firm age to start. And yeah, I think that is part of what gives me pause, but sometimes it's a little misguided. You think, well, if he plays longer, he has more likelihood of brain issues, CTE, degenerative diseases. And it's true, but to me, it's true on the back end. It's true whenever you play 4 years of high level college and then 5-10 years in the pros, if that's where the blows and the repetition. I'm just not sure that 7, 8, 9, 10, 11-year-olds adding football onto the front end is what's going to lead to this. I'm still interested in it. And as I get more specifically interested, this was good. And as my son can't play till next year, I'll pour into a little more. But to me, that's at least, an initial brush and to get things going where I am.
Makes sense. My youngest son, so I have 3 sons. My oldest was a swimmer. My second and third sons are both big into JROTC, and they are both in Raiders. And so my youngest son, he had to pause Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu so that he could be up and at school at 6 a.m. for practice, because they practice in the mornings, and it's running a 5K and doing the obstacle course, and which is like a 12-foot wall and an 8-foot wall and a bunch of crazy stuff. And they have all kinds of different categories and lots and lots and lots of push-ups and burpees and all the rest. And then he goes into school and is already tired. So it's actually, he's a pretty chill dude anyway, but I'm glad that he's doing that first thing in the morning, and I don't even mind getting up to take him, because
that's awesome.
I think it's helping him in school.
Yeah. I mean, you always worry about how much is too much, and even like with concussion protocols and stuff, there's a lot more research and study and all of that. But even from like a academic level, it's like, how exhausted do I want my kid to be going into school the next day or the following day, or, those types of things. And so it can be a lot, especially for us with kids in multiple sports, we're bouncing everywhere. But as long as they're holding their grades down, they're doing their chores at home, I think I've threatened one time to pull sports away. I'm like, if you can't get your stuff together, no more football, and
that's scary.
Yeah, of course, it's straightened the brain up.
Yeah, this study I did find was the American Academy of Neurology. They looked at 621 college football players. The average age that they started playing was 10, but these 621 players all had a concussion. And so they evaluated them. They had baseline, before the concussion. They looked at portions of them. I don't know why, not all of them, but 1 or 2 days after the concussion, and also once their symptoms have resolved. And obviously what they're trying to see is, are the symptoms worse, longer, more severe in people who, because they had a whole wide range. The median age was 10, but some started at 16, 18, and some started 7, 8 years old. And they found no evidence that athletes who started playing tackle football at an earlier age had longer recovery times, worse performance on thinking and memory tests, worse balance, or any greater psychological problems. So it's significant in size, very reputable organization. And I think too, again, this is more anecdotal, but I think, if your son plays football 3-4 years from 7th to 9th grade, outside of acute concussions, that's a risk. That risk is greater at football than at basketball. Okay. All those things I think we kind of take for granted and just assume. But if you're looking at, if my son plays and things go normal, is there any issue there? And that's where I just don't think that you can find any link there. And so looking at this was interesting because it kind of hits, like I was talking about earlier, like the front end play and the back end play. The kind of the front end being, well, maybe you play really long, you play your 10-year pro. Well, who does that apply to? Mm-hmm. But at the same time, that is who the CTE studies are being done on. That is where this is coming from, and for good reason. But
right.
This was kind of, I like this age where it's, okay, what's the top end realistic possibility for my son if he plays? Through high school, maybe in college a little bit. That's the absolute top end. And so what is going on in what would be my top end? The average age was 10. So I thought this one was really good, pretty encouraging from that standpoint.
Makes sense.
Yeah. No, that's all really good stuff. The only thing that I think is important to mention too is just the strides that have been made with education, as kids are learning to play football, even the emergence of more flag football and ways that you can still expose kids to smaller doses of certain sports as opposed to just kind of diving in head first. No pun intended. My goodness. But I think that general principle applies like across the board with physical activity, exercise interventions, no matter what the case is. So to think that children would be any different, that like you did, hey, let's start a couple years of flag football or a couple years of maybe just in-house soccer or just like the local version. And we just, kind of dose in some exposures.
You're titrating the dose.
You're titrating the dose. Exactly. And so that has to mean something in the large scheme of injury risk. I mean, we didn't even really talk about overuse injury potential. I know we've zeroed in on head injury, which is obviously, the scariest part about sports, but hey, kids riding bikes, skateboarding, extreme sports, sled riding, trampolines, unfortunately, as fun as those things are, those have as great of a risk, if not greater risk, to those same sort of head injuries. It's just that how prevalent American football is. It's like every group of parents somehow are faced with the decision of, do my kids play football? Mm-hmm. It just speaks to how pervasive the sport is. It is just so embedded in culture that it's like more weird not to make the football decision that it is.
You're right. That's even like, absolutely. Like I was saying, like, and trying to, even my own role that I'm almost like not pushing or nothing like that, but like, almost like, do you want to play football? Like asking, like, it's just, well, I have to at least see if they want to, right? It's football, and then sometimes like, I don't know, maybe that's
high school. Yeah. I mean, you go to school, the football team, depending on where you go, is usually crowds are the biggest and the scholarships then are the biggest and the boosters are the biggest. And so it's like this massive, it's this monster that is going to exist whether you like it or not. And so I like what Joey said too, just the idea of, even just fleshing out some of the benefits of a sport like that, but ultimately how we dose it even at a young age all the way through. How often are you hitting in practice? Mm-hmm. How often, it's like those same principles apply across the board, even with baseball, with pitching, managing pitch count, not even just managing pitch count. How often are kids throwing in practice? What about the kid that plays for 3 teams and he's throwing at every practice? It's like, it's hard in the moment to begin to try and manage those things. But as a parent, you certainly, you have more control over it initially than you think. And the dose is really everything for, especially overuse injuries,
Yeah.
Love it.
And just from a practical standpoint, just a couple key points that I found for me as I was looking things up. If you have a son that's about to play, maybe you're not real familiar with the game, whatever the case may be. But Virginia Tech every year publishes helmet data. They evaluate 34 different youth football helmets and put out a different report every year evaluating them. So when we're talking about all these things, if you want to minimize risk, there is a way to at least maximize the protection that your son wears. That's why I love that they wear the Guardian hats. And you may say, well, why don't they wear them for games? I don't know, but I can tell you for sure in my experience, a little bit of a different generation now, which is crazy to say, but the practices were way harder than games in terms of just the physicality on your body and how much you hit and doing drills and things like that. So not only that, well, if you're practicing 5 days a week and the game's 1 day a week, there's simple math there, but just literally any individual practice can be more difficult in the games in terms of the impacts that you're having. Mm-hmm. Second thing, like Dante touched on, the coaches. In your community, that's really all that matters. What are those coaches like? And there's some psychology going on there too with some of these football coaches.
Dude,
and
it's
stuff.
wild. Some of these guys out here.
But seriously, does it cross the line? How much are they hitting in practice? It's one thing to tell a kid, my arm's a little sore, shake it off. Just to get my general point here. Okay, that's one thing. That's part of football. My bell's rung. I'm a little dizzy. I stumbled when I got up. I got up slow. That's not shake it off. That's not toughness. That's where attitudes have changed for the better. What is your coach's maybe approach to something like that? Is it get back in line and tough it out the same with the kid who said his arm's a little sore? Or is it like, all right, it's head here. Just go over and see the trainer. Just, take some plays off. Let's have somebody look at you. So I think that's critical. What is the atmosphere and the environment of where your individual son would be playing? I think that's critical. And the last thing is really just, for me, would be to talk to him about those things. Because I think it's very easy for a kid to feel pressured by the coach, pressured peer. You're in a sport that's emphasizing toughness, to shake off head injuries, and I know that they talk about in the NFL, to try to hide a head injury because you don't want to come out of the game, because you don't want to miss the game that week, all those things. So just to have a real conversation, like, yes, you're allowed to play, but just understand that, when things are going on with your head, we're going to put that in a different category.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, they coaches are great. Like they pay really close attention. The thing that's interesting though is when it's game day. And like this one coach got booted from a game because one of the kids had like a cutback block or something, and like it was like a blindside hit, and he was like, yeah, he's like getting all fired up. The ref was like, get out. He like booted him from the game. Yeah. So I think like emotions like that kind of take over. But as far as like practice and their kids, the kids on their team, they're pretty good about protecting them and watching out for kind of. And I even told Jonah, as far as like having conversations with your son. I told Jonah, I said, like, man, these coaches aren't like mad at you. They don't want you to get hurt. I said, they're trying to get the best out of you. It's like when they're screaming at you guys, like they're trying to push you guys to your limit to see, to kind of test. But
definitely. And it's a fine line too, because if you say, hey, well, all right, a lot of the impact that's going on is in practice and I don't want to make these kids hit all the time. Well, potentially if you're on the far end of that extreme, you're not preparing the kids to go play against kids who are ready to kick their butt and who are ready to hit them. And they're not used to taking the hits. They don't, you know what I mean? They're not prepared for it. So you have to walk the line between not beating these kids up every day in practice, but making sure they're prepared to go out and face the community next door that who knows what they're doing in practice.
Yeah. It's hard to tell a child that exercising 3 times a week for 60 minutes and doing this, and it's impossible to tell a child that. Maybe a 14-year-old, 16-year-old, as they understand physicality a little more. But again, we have to remember that, because I think we'll talk about youth sports and youth movement as frequent as anything, that what is the vehicle that we are going to expose kids to?
Yeah.
Physical activity. What will be the vehicle in which they start to understand physicality, physical culture in a vast array of arenas? You just watch one play of an American football game and there's sprinting, pushing, shoving, sliding. There's so much occurring that you can cultivate tons of physical skills for life for kids versus maybe some other sports. So I think that gets lost on some of this sometimes, as passionate as we all are, maybe about a given sport or, whatever it is. It's just, I think that's a helpful way to think about it, is this is what we sign up for is ultimately the vehicle by which we expose kids to exercise and physical activity. And at this point,
I can't wait till you have kids and we can revisit all this stuff.
It's going to be great. Yeah. We just talked about that this week.
When Nicole is going, I don't know about football. We go, hang on, Nicole. We have an episode you should watch.
Oh man. I don't know what I would do.